There we go. Hi, guys. Of course, hello. I'm Lewis Sabin. This is the Lewis Sabin Show, and today we're going to talk about NFL news. We're going to talk about a great signing for Notre Dame, kneeling this season and what it means, and the racism in America and why we believe it's so rampant. A lot of people are going, "You just read that off the web page." Yeah, I did. I did do that. Please, for those of you who enjoy this, enjoy what I do, anything along those lines, please like and subscribe down here. I'm also going to add the Facebook page in the uh, description, as well as my Patreon page, which I'm working towards figuring out how that works. All right, let's talk about one thing first. Let's talk about the signing from Notre Dame, because that's simple and I can get to it in like 90 seconds. Notre Dame signed a five-star punter. For those of you who don't know what five-star is, so when it comes to recruiting, there are so many stars people are handed out. It depends on how good of a recruit you are. For those of you who are Alabama fans or know who Alabama is, Alabama signs like 6 or 7 five-star. They're the top, the cream of the crop, top of the line players every year. Michigan signs like 2 or 3. Ohio State usually gets 4, 3 or 4. Alabama usually gets about 5. There aren't very many of them. There's usually about maybe 20 in the country. There are a lot of 4s. 4-star is very common. 5, not so much. The can't miss quarterback from last season, he was like, I think, 2nd or 3rd in the country, that went to Notre Dame, Phil Jerkovich. He is a 4-star recruit, to give you an idea. JT Barrett, I think, was a 4 or a 5-star recruit. Uh, Mark Ingram, I believe, was a 4 or a 5-star. Trying to give you some ideas here. The kid that's the quarterback now for, probably the quarterback for Alabama, Tua Tagovailoa, he's a 5-star. To give you an idea what 5-star recruits are, they're excellent players. Notre Dame signed that in a punter, which a lot of people are probably like, hey, what do you need a punter for? Well, when you're down by 3 and I need to put the other team way down the other end of the field, it comes in handy. So I'm very happy that we were able to sign such a huge piece, and yeah, pretty much it. Um, and for those who do the whole, who cares to punter thing, well, look at Johnny Hecker for the Rams. He's excellent. Look at what's the name of the punter for the Lions? Sam something or other. I forget his name. People who can down the ball way at the other end of the field, or that kid who just came out of Texas, who like every other punt bounced off the 3-yard line and out of bounds. Well, on a regular basis, if I can send the ball 80 yards downfield and have it bounce out at the 1, I'm helping my defense immensely. I'm helping my offense immensely, and we're making it very tough for the other team to drive all the way down the field. The next thing I want to talk about is a little more important and deeper, and that is the kneeling. Yeah, that's right. We're going to dive right into important stuff now. Then we'll end with NFL news. So, kneeling. The whole kneeling because it disrespects the flag. And it's disrespecting the soldiers, yada yada. Well, it's funny because if you talk to most soldiers, they don't care. A lot of them don't. Am I saying all of them? No. Of course, I'm sure there's a couple who probably are a little offended. Of course, then again, there's a lot of people who are really easily offended by everything. So let's run down the gist of what's going on. A lot of African American players, not all African American players, some, and again, there are even there's a couple white guys, which is kind of cool to see. The unity of, okay, even white guys are willing to get in on this, are kneeling during the national anthem due to the fact that there's a lot of racial bigotry and a lot of divide between whites and African Americans, especially when it comes to police. Not only socially, economically, and uh, educationally. Sorry, I couldn't come. I'm like school. What the word I'm looking for? Also, in the essence of just how they're treated on a daily basis. I mean, look at the thing that happened at Starbucks. The white guy can go pee, but you two black men, no. Which was the weirdest and dumbest thing I've ever seen. Which led to the second dumbest thing that I've ever heard, which is the possible biased. How's it worded? It's subconscious biased. What? We need to have unbiased training. No, I got an idea. How about if you're biased, you can't work here? Or how about an even simpler thing? The guy had to pee. Have you ever had to pee really bad? Well, guess what? Let the guy pee. And that's just my stance. I don't know what he had to do. I assume he just had to urinate. I don't actually know. I saw the news story. I saw a little bit on the news story, and then noticed how quickly it went away. I always find that interesting. If it would have been a white guy, we'd have been hearing about it for weeks, but because it's a black guy, we'll talk about it for like 2 days, and then don't talk about it ever again. That's another thing I've noticed. White girl goes missing, and the world's, oh my god, we have to look for her. We have to make sure that she's okay. And that's funny. There's a black girl that went missing 2 years ago. Around the same time, she got 1 day of news coverage. 1. They found her after the snow thawed, and they're like, yeah, well, that's where we found her, and that's it. Back to the white girl that's missing. Now, a lot of people are probably going to go, well, you're white, so you're just siding with the favorite side. No, I have African-American friends, I have Muslim friends, I have Mexican friends. I'm buddy-buddy with pretty much everybody. Which is usually a thing you don't want to say, because that makes you sound stupid. Well, why would you have to tell me that? Don't know. Felt it was necessary. But, I have a multi-group of friends, and so we talked about this, and we talked about a lot of things like this. But the big one is, why is it so different? And it's just insane to think that we didn't think of you as a human being. I thought of you as a black guy and the white guy, not, person in person. But back to the kneeling thing, that's a lot of the reason why these guys are taking a knee, because they're trying to bring some light to an issue that has been going on since forever, which is the mistreatment of African American people. And I don't disagree with them. So, especially now that the dumbass in charge, sorry, that's not a political view, I just think he's an idiot. That's because I have common sense. You see, when you have common sense and you have this thing called a brain, and you think, there are certain statements people make and you go, you didn't think before you opened your mouth, did you? And in the case of the president, he does that every time he opens his mouth. But, his most recent statement about how if you don't stand for the flag, they should be fined and possibly kicked out of the country, made me just go, that makes me hope that everybody kneels. Because forced patriotism isn't patriotism at all. And I'm all for the stars and stripes and blah, 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 blah. Of course, then again, I also believe in what George Carlin said, which is the flag is a symbol, and I leave that to the people who are symbol-minded. Which is true. It's a piece of cloth. Is it important? Yes. Is it important because there are men and women who have bled in order for me to be the way I am and say what I want? Absolutely. At the same time, have you looked around lately? It's starting to go the other way. You know who else made people attend things and made people, salute to him and made sure that if you didn't like him, you were shot? I see. Who could I be talking about? And people always go, well, of course you're going to jump right to that guy. I'm not comparing the two. I'm just saying there are similarities. Maybe it's a good thing I speak a little German. It might come in handy. Of course, nowadays it'd be Russian that'd be more likely because, they're currently in control because of the dum-dum and all of his dum-dum friends that he brought in, which didn't make any sense because they know nothing about what they're doing. I don't like to talk about politics. I'll move away from that. Anyway, the kneeling thing, I've actually considered several times not participating in the national anthem thing, mostly because I personally think it's dumb. Why do you think it's dumb? I think it's dumb that we do it ahead of everything. Am I saying in certain moments it's not a good idea? Sure, like when the U.S. teams play Canada in hockey. By all means, play both of them. But ahead of every single football game and every single basketball game and every single everything, and you just go, it gets old really quick. Like really quick. And when you look at the fact that, you know, like I said, there's such a divide, you kind of have to agree with the people who are kneeling a little bit. And if you don't, you might want to examine yourself a little bit, because we should all be treated the same. We're all human beings. That's also why I stand the way I do on the whole border thing, which I'm not going to get into. But anyway, food for thought. Look at yourself, look at the man next to you, the woman next to you, the people around you, and realize that we are not black, we are not white, we are not Mexican, we're not Christian, we're not Muslim, we're people. We're all people. And we should try to love one another regardless, because you're a person and you have feelings and you have hopes and dreams, and you're a person, just like how I'm a person. And we can get along because you're a person, I'm a person, and I have no evil feelings towards you, because we're all here together. In the words of the Beatles, I am he as you are me, and we are all together. Alright, now let's get to something that has really bugged me a lot lately in local news, national news, and again, the president. He gets under my skin a lot. Racist comments and the constant racial picking that goes on constantly. In a recent speech, the president said that, and again, he changed his mind after somebody pointed out that he said this, he called Hispanic immigrants animals, and that those people shouldn't be allowed to come here. Well, then he later changed his tune and said, I was talking about the MS-13 gang. Okay, you were talking about a relatively small problem in a very large world, not the immigrants that you've been trying to kick out. Sure. He doubled down on that, by the way, later, that I was talking about everybody. The comments from Roseanne Barr that I'm not going to get into, that she recently said, everything that Ted Nugent pretty much has ever said. And I find it interesting that, you know, it seems to be when small-time people say something, oh my God, their contracts are ripped up and they're in deep trouble, and oh my God, how could they ever... But then when someone like Donald, or Roseanne, or, let's see, Ted, what's that other guy's name? Not Paul Ryan. He looks like a turtle. Jeff Sessions. For some reason, Paul Ryan popped in my head. It's not Paul Ryan, it's the other one. Jeff Sessions. They're all rats. I'd say that about all politicians for the most part. Anyway, I'm trying not to get political here. The fact that they are cracking down on people of color, and that's all of them, especially African Americans, Hispanics, and Muslims, and that they don't want them here, and that they're not welcome, and you're not supposed to be. And it's like, again, I just hesitate to that thought and go, do you think before you open your mouth? Did you think that, oh, this is a person? My favorite argument when it comes to this is, the Hispanic argument, which is that, well, they're not from here. Well, that's funny. You know where my people are from? My people are from Europe. Germany, Finland, Ireland, Poland, France. They came here illegally. And then they stole the land that we're currently standing on from these other people who were already here. We don't like to mention that, though. We don't like to mention that part. That remember the people that were here before? We raped and murdered almost all of them, and then took all their land and stuck them on these little parchments, and then went, that'll work. Little parcels they were around, and then we went, that'll do. Huh. I don't seem to be remembered that I was supposed to be here either. Come to think of it. So now when these people, especially with the immigration thing, want to come here, my immediate response is, well, my people came here without paperwork. I don't see a border when you look at a map. Well, that's because you're stupid. You don't see the border. No, I see a borderline between what you consider countries, but when you go up in space and you're looking at the continent, for those of you who are small-minded, that's the whole segment, you'll notice there's no borderlines. It looks like one giant piece of land. So as far as I'm concerned, if you'd like to come here, by all means, because you got to be productive. Now people go, well, you're not productive. Well, that's because I'm handicapped. But most people who come here are looking to better themselves. In that case, by all means, come here, get an education, and then if you'd like to go back to your home country because, I'm now much better off, have at it. But, it's just something that gets under my skin because we don't want them here because they're Mexican. Okay, what if they were white? Would that matter? No, it wouldn't. You know why? There's people from China, Europe, let's see, Russia. I say Europe because I don't want to go through all the little bitty countries that are over there. I could, but I don't want to. But in Canada, that's another one that's real funny. We don't talk about Canada. Canada has people come here all the fucking time. Pardon my French. But the Mexicans, they're the ones that are the problem. You know who else said that? Again, I hate to refer you back to that guy. He picked a minority also and blamed all of our problems. Oh, sorry, all of their problems. On... At the time, a minority. Wonder what the 300 million that are dead from that would have to say about this. I think they'd see a correlation. Yeah. Sorry, I hate to always go back to that. People are like, you're always comparing him to Hitler. It's hard not to compare him to something that he's trying awfully hard to compare himself to. There are a lot of similarities. Am I saying they're the same? No. I'm saying there's things that are kind of similar. For instance, sticks to a mostly white Christian base about how we're great and everybody else sucks. Blames one tiny group for all of our problems, even though it's not accurate. My favorite one is when he blames the Democrats. I laid out this immigration plan. It's great. It's awesome. It's going to be the greatest thing ever. I'm awesome. It goes down the shitter. Well, the Democrats, the ones that came up with that. That's funny. I'm pretty sure 2 months ago you were saying how you came up with it. So which was it? Anyway, I was going off about our thing about racism. Again, I always end up on that. Then we go to the other end, which would be the African American side, which is, that they're always, thugs and heathens, and they're the ones that are the problem also, which I don't ever understand at all. But, just like with, again, the Hispanic side, they're always drug peddling. Always. The best example I have of goofy things that have happened under the current administration. Again, I don't want to pick on him anymore, but this is kind of funny. And the essence of it falls in line with this. There's a segment of the cabinet known as urban development. Now, for those of you who don't know, a lot of people, in order to not sound racist, refer to African American people as urban. When they talk about an urban center, it's usually the more African American side of town. The urban area of the city. Well, it's usually where most the larger percent of African American population is. Usually, it's a racist slang, if you will. There are a lot of other things that people say also, but I'm just using this one because this one falls in line with this. There's a segment in the cabinet known as urban development. Urban development works with housing, infrastructure, and something else. I forget. Might be agriculture. Anyway, no, that'd be the ag guy. Anyway, regardless. Do you know who our current urban secretary is? Secretary of Urban Development is Ben Carson. There's a reason I bring this up. Do you know who Ben Carson is? For those who don't know, Ben Carson ran for president. Ben Carson is a moron. He's a brain surgeon, but I wouldn't want him doing surgery on me ever. When he opens his mouth, you just go, you didn't read about this at all, did you? About everything. Ben Carson is in charge of urban development. If you look at the rest of Trump's cabinet, they're all white except for urban development. The urban development is a black guy. Why do I bring this up? Yeah, I think he read the word urban and didn't know what that was and just went, I'll just put black guy in charge of it. Because it's urban. Just thought I'd bring that up. Thought that was interesting. Alright, we'll move away from the hard-hitting topics and we'll get to something much more fun, which is the whole reason I started this thing, which is sports. And that is NFL news. So, Kirk Cousins has been working with several receivers working in the offense. He's now, of course, with Minnesota, which we'll talk about that real quick, that change here in a second. But Kirk Cousins said that he's been working a lot with the receivers and worked with the team in OTAs. And Stephon Diggs said that he thinks that his Kirk Cousins' spiral makes it, quote, easier to catch the ball, which I believe is true. Kirk has a pretty good release. He's what I call a distributor type quarterback. He doesn't have this big arm. He's not going to rip it downfield. He's not Big Ben. But he's very good at getting the ball where it needs to go, which is very important. Think of like Nick Foles. Nick Foles is not your franchise, going to win me 150 games, going to go 16-0 every year. But he's very good at his job. He's very good at just standing back there, being patient, and getting the ball where it needs to go. You don't need anything more than that a lot of the time. Think Blake Bortles. Blake Bortles isn't going to make those big-time plays. But he's going to make the plays when you need them, which is important. I mentioned the Kirk Cousins thing. He was, of course, with the Redskins. The Redskins let him go, and he went to the Minnesota Vikings. The Redskins, in return, got Alex Smith. They traded him. I'm trying to think. They gave up a corner and a pick to the Kansas City Chiefs. Why do I bring this up? Kirk Cousins and Alex Smith are very similar in the essence of they're both kind of more of a distributor type guy, and they aren't necessarily who you really want in a big game when it's on a line. Not saying they choke, just saying you go, there's a couple other guys I'd rather have than Kirk Cousins or Alex Smith. That's one of those big debates that's been going on this year is did the Redskins, take a step up or a step down? I personally think the Redskins took a step back getting Alex Smith. I think Alex Smith can win you big games. I think he can win it for you. But the problem is it's the Redskins. They don't draft well. They don't pick up very many good free agents. And they just don't give you enough weapons. That was part of Kirk's problem. You looked around and you went, who do I got at receiver? I have Ryan Grant from Tulane, who's pretty good, but he's not a number one receiver. I have Terrell Pryor, who's 6'6", but that's it. You had Deshaun Jackson, you let him go, which I didn't follow at all. And so, you sit back and you go, you didn't give him anything. You didn't give him any weapons. He would have had a change of pace back, but you let him go, and Alfred Morris. So we pick up, let's see, in the last 4 years, they've had 4 or 5 different running backs, and all of them have been mediocre. So, yeah. It's sad to think that, he really didn't have a team around him. At least now in Minnesota, Kirk has a team around him. Adrian Peterson. Adrian Peterson is, of course, still a free agent, and people are wondering where he might end up. I don't think he will get signed. If he does, he'll go somewhere like... Think of when he went to Arizona. He's not going to be your number 1 back. He's going to be the number 2, number 3 guy. So even if he does end up playing, I don't think it'll be for the long haul. I think it'll be a very short tenure. Personally, I think he should retire. Andrew Luck, last I heard, his shoulder was still doing okay. I haven't seen him do any reps, so I don't know how his throwing motion is. I would like to see that. Okay, here's a statement. Again, I don't like to read these verbatim, but sometimes I have to. Tomlin says the Chargers on paper, that'd be like LaDainian Tomlinson, on paper are a Super Bowl contender. Now, normally I'd argue with you and I'd think of some things, but especially this last year's draft, I actually have to agree with you. They picked up some very good weapons that they needed. They picked up some very good free agents, and they did a really good job in free agency, not only undrafted, but regular free agency, in picking up some very solid players. So I agree. I think the Chargers are in a very good spot. Of course, you still have to work against, let's see, they play Denver twice a year, who's bouncing back. You got to play the Raiders, who I think are going to bust out and be okay probably for the first 4 or 5 weeks, and then they're going to hit the trash can again. And then you got to deal with Kansas City, who always has a tough defense, but their offense, I just don't know. They have speed and all this, but they don't have that guy on their team. They have Tyreek Hill, who's incredible, but he's not that guy. They haven't really had that guy since Dwayne Bowe. So, I don't know. Gotta think about that. As for my personal Super Bowl contenders, in the NFC North, I'd probably say we'll go through division. NFC North, I see the Packers or maybe even the Bears winning. I think the Vikings make it to the wild card. NFC South, I see that either being the Saints. Yeah, probably the Saints winning that. Maybe the Bucks, but nah, I'm going to lean on the Saints for that one. Patriots win their division. That's not going to be surprising. Pittsburgh will be in it. Dallas, I don't know. I think they'll probably make a wild card. Not saying they won't have a good record. I'm just thinking they'll probably make a wild card. When it comes to the AFC, it's going to be the same thing as always. It's going to be the Patriots, the Steelers. The Jags will probably make it to the playoffs. Denver will probably make it. Wild card or not, they'll probably make the playoffs. On the NFC side, Packers, Vikings, Saints, Rams. I think they're NFC. They're either NFC or AFC. I can never remember. They'll make it. Rams are a possibility to be my dark horse this year. I say dark horse. They're not really a dark horse team this year. They got a lot of weapons. They got very good this offseason. I'll throw a team out there. The Cardinals. If David Johnson can remain healthy and they use Josh Rosen as their starter, they could be a dark horse team. I think the Raiders will shit the bed. Again, pardon my French. I think they just won't do well. Nothing against Derek Carr. I don't think that offense fits him anymore because now you got John Gruden, who's not... He's a West Coast guy. Where I think they need more a run and gun situation. Seattle will make it. Probably. I'd imagine. They did a pretty good job this year in the draft, last couple of years. They'll probably make a wild card. That defense isn't what it used to be, but they'll probably still make a wild card. That's pretty much it. Kansas City will probably make it. That's an AFC team. Tennessee, they made it by the skin of their pants last year. They might make it in again. They did alright in the draft. But that's pretty much it. I mean, other than that, there's a lot of teams I know will not be doing well. The Bills are one of them. There's two teams I see being at the bottom of the barrel again. One of them's the Bills, the other one's the Jets. The Jets traded all these picks and all this to get up and take Sam Darnold. And then they pretty much didn't draft another player worth a damn. And they didn't do very well in free agency, so I'm not liking their chances. In the case of the Lions, they got a couple really good backs. And I'm very intrigued to see. Wide receiver core is good. Defense is okay. Maybe a wild card. That'll be about it. Yeah. And that's it. That's the show. Only 30 minutes this day. There's not a lot going on right now. The only other news I can think to tell you guys is Keem Hunt tore his hamstring, I think, or injured his hamstring. He's out right now in OTAs. He's at light practice. He said light practice or said he was out. I forget. And Dante Hightower is still suffering from a pectoral injury from last year. So we'll see how that ends up. But that's it. There's not much going on. I don't want to get too political, but it seems to be that's the only thing we can talk about. Because that's the only thing going on. And I know there's some people on here that are like, what about basketball? I don't watch basketball. I just never got into it, and so I'm confused when I do watch it because I don't understand the rules. There's a lot of rules and pros that aren't in college that confuse me. I watch college basketball all day. I can watch college basketball. Pros, I get confused because I go, wait, I didn't think you could do that. And I'm like, apparently you can. And then somebody else doesn't, and they go, foul. And you go, well, wait, you didn't call on that guy. But it's just mind-boggling. It's like how it's getting in the NFL. It's getting that way in the NFL where you're like, well, wait a minute. I thought you couldn't do that. Maybe they changed that rule. And then they call it on another guy, and you go, oh, wait a minute. Like Brady and the hand thing. Some of you know what I'm talking about. There's 8 seconds left on the play clock, and they're just now getting to the huddle, and 40 seconds. Anyway. Can't wait for college ball. Can't wait for pro ball. Hockey, it's come down to the Capitals and the Vegas Knights. Pulling for Vegas. Won't feel bad if the Caps win it, but I'm pulling for Vegas. In Game 1, my boy Tomas Nozick got the game winner. Game 2, Holtby was the star and made a beautiful save, so it's 1-1. And Game 3, I believe, is tomorrow on NBCSN. Check your local listings. And that does it for this podcast show. Not sure still what to call this. Because, see, it was a podcast. And then I was like, well, no, not really. It's more of a show. So I changed it. And then now I'm like, I don't know. I'll keep it at show, because that's more accurate. Anyway, you guys have yourself a lovely day, night, evening, afternoon, whenever on earth you watch this. Peace and love. Bye.